now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm, so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Schrepf's command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through veritable seas to boxes flow. Dar, oh, dive. Hoist the sail.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Partnership. I'm really excited about today's topic, which is the intersection between partnerships and M&A. And the way it came together is that our guest today, Mario, who is the digital ecosystem leader at manufacturing giant Hexagon, actually hosted a session about this at the partnership leaders for the partnership leaders community. And so after that session, Mario and I connected and just said, like, wow, this is such a great topic. I really want to dive in deeper. So thanks so much for taking the time, Mario. This has been a long time coming.
Likewise, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So it's a topic which a lot of people are interested about because I feel like it's not really easy to find a lot of information about M&A because it's always kind of hush-hush and it's like, not something which a lot of partnerships people necessarily are involved in. So I want to open this up to the audience as well. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Let us know, and then Mario and I will discuss them as well. And so with that, let's begin with just a difference between partnerships and M&A.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of confusion out there. A lot of people are still very much, struggling a bit to understand what's the real difference. In a very straightforward way, partnerships are much more focused on collaboration, focused on shared goals, maintaining independence. They want to have lower risk, lower investment. This is, even though maybe like long shots, but they still want to have some level of independence and low risk. M&A is completely the opposite. It's a higher level of risk. It's a higher level of commitment. It's a long-term strategic objectives. It also looks for full integration and control of that specific company. So it's slightly different because one is shared goals, the other one is full control. In a nutshell, in a very simple way.
Got it. I like that way of thinking about it. It's basically trading risk. Like, how much risk are you willing to take on and how much control do you want, right? Because you're balancing like control and risk. Like a partner, you have very little control over what they actually do, or you might have a little bit if you invested in them or something like that. But compared to a company you acquire, the control is pretty loose. But then also they take on all of the business risk.
That's exactly it. That's the point. And that's why it's so important to think about what we should go do next. Should I go to the partnership? I know that we're going to touch that further on, but that's the real first thing that people have to think about.
Yeah. I know that, we chatted about this before, like you have extensive experience in both, but can you share a little bit about your journey of like how you as a partnership leader also got involved on the M&A side?
Yeah, well, working in several companies, enterprise level companies, there's always that moment in time when the companies, think, how are we going to grow? Should we go organically? Should we go through M&A? Should we also think about what's going to be the next big thing in our portfolio, or should we tackle another, geography? So all of these different elements. There's always a moment in especially in large companies where we say, well, we need to grow, we need to move on. What's the next step? And this is the moment in time when we start thinking about that. It's just putting some thoughts on. We have some cash, we have some solid market share, but this is not enough. So what's next? And this is when these companies that I went through, I've worked for large companies, but also small companies. But small companies usually are acquired, not thinking about acquiring other companies, unless it's a startup and he thinks about expanding their portfolio and expanding their geography. But in my own experience, there's always there was always a time where big companies wanted to have more market share.
Mhm.
Most of them that are global, they may think, all right, what's how are we going to grow, or what do we need to do to grow a bit further? And this is where the M&A topic comes up. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. One way we thought about this at Hopin. So at Hopin, we bought in total, I think, 7 companies during our time there. And like we grew from like a small seed stage company to Series D company. And so throughout that journey, we kept on acquiring companies. And one way we thought about it was organic versus inorganic growth. Like there's your
Yes.
organic growth, which is like, your business operations and expanding and partnerships and all kinds of stuff. And then there's inorganic growth where we just like spend money in order to acquire market share or acquire growth as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have my own my own experience tells me that in some cases, these decisions have been really solid and positive decisions in things. Okay, well, let's think about organic. We
Mhm.
need a bunch of people. We need to acquire this capability or competency instead of enabling a group of people within our company versus how much is going to cost us to acquire another company with that specialization or competency and speed to market. So they
Yeah.
all think about that, and this is the exercise that needs to be done. I've been in a company who, over the last 2.5 years, they did 78 acquisitions. In two
Wow.
and a half years, 78 acquisitions. And
That's
that
incredible.
we may think, okay, well, that's a complete different dimension. Yes, it is. The thing is, are they all going to be successful or not? There was it the right due diligence before the acquisitions of those companies. So we all need to think that big companies, they usually go out and start acquiring companies just because there's someone who thinks that we need to grow quickly, without doing that due diligence before, without even understanding how to expand the market, without even knowing what's the capabilities they need, cost synergies, or even portfolio diversification or expansion. So all of these experiences also help me to understand when's the right moment for us to think about the M&A for various reasons. It can
Yeah.
be just for capability or specialization as opposed to market reach or market expansion. So it depends on the specific need for that, for the company to grow.
Yeah. So a lot of the people who listen to this podcast probably wouldn't be doing 78 acquisitions this year. A lot of our audience more startup and then up to Series D kind of like companies. And I think a lot of them are thinking about acquisitions too. Like I can give you an example. Recently I had a call with a founder. They were like a seed stage company. They raised like I think $5 million or so. And they were looking into acquiring another company just for their customer base, right? And so I had a lengthy discussion with them around like you're only like 30 people. Like, do you think it's the right time now to actually acquire another business which has its own 15, 20 people, even though it was like small stage acquisition? But there's like a lot of things which can go wrong. So I'm curious, like, when do you think is the right time to do these kind of acquisitions, even at the small stage, for example, with smaller teams of like 10, 15 people?
Yeah. Well, now I would just press the whole button for obvious reasons.
Knowing what you know now, yeah.
Knowing what we know now. But I think it's the best advice is regardless of if it's a startup or scale up or an enterprise company, the best practices are there for all. So
Mhm.
some of the topics that we've touched on, if you really want to grow because you need more people, you need to go to speed to market, you need to go quicker to the market, or you found a new opportunity in one specific market, can be an emerging market, can be a mature market. You need presence or you need portfolio to complement what you have already. So there's tons of reasons or elements, I would say, elements for us to assess when's the best time. But I also need to think that in this acquisition discussion, and I went through some of the times when I honestly thought, even myself, I honestly thought that, well, this is a perfect timing because, that's a specific portfolio. I need that product to my portfolio. But the company was saying, well, the strategy department was telling me, hold on just a bit because this is not a good timing. Cash flow, blah blah blah, all financials, and also from a brand awareness perspective, we just finalized an M&A. We're not going to do another one without settling and understand exactly what's going on. I think now, oh my God, especially now, it's just too many spinning plates, and a lot of M&As are there. I see a lot of M&As happening, and then after 1 year or 2 years, things go really wrong because there may be a solid reason to go and for an M&A without even testing the waters. But I would definitely go at the moment. I would go and explore a strong partnership to see how the culture fits, how things, what's their vision, what's their mission from both companies. Do a lot of due diligence, and all, if everything aligns, that's okay, that's perfect. Setting up the right expectations for that, that's perfect. But we also need to think about that are things that we can control, but also there are things that we can't control. And at the moment, all of this economic environment that we're living, it's not the best because things can move really fast from one day to another. So my best advice would be, for now, just hold a bit, explore different opportunities and the alternatives of an M&A before making that strong move. Because once you do it, it's really hard to go back.
Yeah. Like once you spent the money and you bought, like I think one of the most common feelings in M&A is probably buyer's remorse. Because you do your due diligence, you see everything, you spend all this money, and then you're like realize that it didn't necessarily work out the way you thought. So what alternatives are there to M&A? Like what can a company do instead of acquiring? Because I think like sometimes people get tunnel vision and just like these guys do a really good job, we should buy them. But what
Yeah,
else can you
absolutely.
tell the CEO when he comes to you like that?
Well, my piece of advice here is that let's start with a partnership. Sometimes we can go with a low entry level partnership just to get a bit of the feeling of how that company works. Many M&As that I've been seeing is by trying to target a company that we've never worked before. No one knows.
Yeah.
I usually, that makes me a bit of an itchy because I like to know exactly who am I targeting for an M&A. I may know a company that it may be well known in the market, respected brand in the market, but I really want to have some level of experience dealing with them on a daily basis. So I can, alternatives can be setting up an alliance, or setting up a strategic partnership, setting up, if something is more mature, that can evolve to a JV with that company. That is in a very similar way what you're going to expect on an M&A, but obviously with a different approach, because as I stated at the very beginning, the differences from a partnership and an M&A, we need to consider that. But a joint venture or strategic partnership or even an alliance, there are very strong bonds between two companies or more.
Yeah.
But once you have that, you start to really, think about and manage that partnership on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You start to understand how these guys go to market, how many people they have, what's their sales targets, what's their sales target,
Yeah.
culture, vision, mission, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned this because it sounds a lot like the ideal way to approach acquisitions is probably the same way you would approach a partnership. Like what makes an ideal partner is probably also what makes an ideal acquisition target, which is like great
That's
product, great
exactly it.
culture, like all these things.
That's exactly it.
One
Yeah.
one alternative I've seen, and we talk about this in the book on partnerships as well, is just your build by partner strategy. So I think you mentioned the idea of portfolio management, and that kind of goes back to that. There's like a 2x2 graphic we have in the book where we talk about like should you build a capability, should you buy it, or should you partner on it? And that
Yeah.
kind of plays in with each other. Because if it's not urgent to add a capability, but you just think it would be cool to have and it would be great for growth potential, you can just build it. Like
Yeah.
there's no need for you to acquire a company just because they're doing well in that market. Maybe you can build something in-house. Um,
Yeah, and it works against you as opposed to in your benefit. My I work for a very large organization at the moment, and we have almost 200 products in our portfolio, spanned across different business units, but
yeah.
it's just wide. It's just a lot of them. So sometimes you feel that, oh God, how am I going to go to market with this? I'll define or build, sales motions for all of this. And, am I going to be able to go to market with all of this? Or how am I going to be able to help my partners to be enabled in such a wide portfolio?
Yeah.
Or, but also we need to understand the fact that we as a company, and even every material that we read and listen nowadays, it shows that the end customer likes to have different, I would say, partnerships and different vendors for different requirements and different
Yeah.
specific things that they need, and not with one. There's no such thing as one size fits all, and this is obviously everybody here gets that quite well. But the thing is, we're not going to be able to do and to serve a customer in everything that the customer is needed. So
Yeah.
I'd rather prefer to have very targeted, specific. Some partnerships can be, wide. Some others can be very niche, can be focused on one thing, but let's do it really well. So it's not about the quantity; it's about the quality of what you deliver.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that aligns with what we've seen. Like definitely like as we started acquiring more companies, like I think like we just didn't pay as much attention to some of the
Yes,
factors. And like some of them just sounded really good in the boardroom, but then the execution wasn't great. So I'm
absolutely.
curious, like, if let's say you identified an area where you want to buy because you want to break into a new geography or you want to like add a capability to your portfolio, what do you look for in an acquisition target?
Well, one of the things that I still do is understanding the total addressable market for that
Mhm.
specific area that I want to get into. Understanding the TAM, the total addressable market. It's I would say that's the first thing that you should see, because otherwise you're trying to bet on something and put your money in something that the return of investment is not going to happen. Um, that's one thing. The second is it's all about your strategic fit, um, and also your competitive landscape in that in the same region and the same with the portfolio. You need to understand that. So these two main things, these have to come in first place.
Mhm.
What's the size of the cake, and what's the competitive landscape, because that
Yeah.
will tell you if that you're going to make a difference or not,
Yeah.
whether you need to go through an M&A or not. But there are other
Yeah.
things that people need to consider. So the operational efficiency, the people in terms of talent, are they good?
Mhm.
Are they not? Are they average?
Yeah.
Risks, the culture, the growth potential, reputation, brand awareness. All of these things needs to be considered, because a company may have a specific reach, but they not may not be a good fit for what is your core culture and vision and strategy for what you're selling,
Yeah.
and your company is well known. So
It
all of these different elements needs to be put in the equation, not just seeing, yeah, oh, there's a huge potential opportunity for me, it's quite a niche market, yeah, that's fine, but how much of that can be also how much of those, or how many of those elements also are important from a culture, talent, efficiency, profitability, market position. All of these elements, they need to be considered.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fascinating part about like an acquisition as well, is that you're buying the whole package. You're not just buying like the bits that you want. I mean, some companies do, like they then like have massive layoffs, for example, and just say like we don't need these teams or something like that. But usually you buy just the whole package. You buy like the entirety of the company, and there's so many moving parts in a company, like so many skeletons in the closet you might need to know about. Just the way they do business might be completely different from you as well.
Although, friends, I need to say that I've seen a successful M&A with just
Mhm.
a slice of that
Yeah,
business. It
interesting. And
was just
can you
one.
share
It
more?
was just one case.
Yeah.
It actually went really well, but it was just one case.
What went really well? Can you share more?
So that case, so I can briefly show you. So I was in a company in the industrial software, and the company wanted to buy an IP, just the IP of that company. The
Yeah.
company was not interested in buying people.
Mhm.
Everything comes in. So what we've agreed was, well, just buy the IP, and the other company was going to turn out to be a services company without
Yeah.
being a solution provider. It's just services. So that company, they kept the name. They went through the process. We've acquired the IP, so the portfolio that we wanted,
Mhm.
um, and and we worked with them as our services partner. So
Mhm.
it's a different M&A. It was not
Yeah.
100%, the company. But it was quite successful because we understood, well, we don't need the people, but the IP is really what we need. So we've made this
Yeah.
arrangement within the M&A
Yeah.
structure, and it went really well.
And they could keep on running their business as a services business. That's interesting.
There you go.
I didn't think about it, but there's like all these flavors to M&A as well, where it's like
All
you
these
can like
flavors,
slice and
yes.
dice it differently. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the way we thought about it, Hoppen, and I put this in the book as well, is there basically three factors we considered. And it was like people, like as you mentioned, like the team, the culture, like are these people you want to work with? Because that's where like traditionally like something like an acqui-hire comes in, where you just acquire the people and like don't care about the product. Um, the product is the next one. Like how good is the product? Can you integrate it with your system or not? That's a really big factor because they might have an awesome product, but it doesn't work with yours. I've seen that happen as well in the past. And then the last one
Yes.
is the market. Like, how many customers do you have? Are they good customers? Are they customers like yours? Do you have overlapping customers? Are there more of them? Like you said, like the TAM. Like, can we acquire more of those customers?
Yes.
Those are like the three things we looked at. And at least from our experience, like the best acquisition was a company where we had all three. Like we had great people, great product, and we had great market. And that was StreamYard, which is the company we're using to live stream right now. Like when we acquired them, they had like awesome customers, an awesome team, very nimble team. They only were like 21 people or so, but all very stellar. And then also
Yeah.
a great product.
Sorry.
No worries. So I wanted to ask you then, why do so many acquisitions fail? Like, we're talking about like, what to look for an acquisition target. Like people who do this a lot have, a ton of experience. They know what a good acquisition target looks like in theory. If they do like, 80 acquisitions in like 3 years, they also have like the amount of, velocity of deals to actually go through all of these. But still, like so many acquisitions fail. I recently read a stat. I don't know the exact number anymore. I think it was 80%, but definitely more than half of acquisitions actually
Oh,
don't turn
yes.
out to work, like be the way that people anticipated them. So what goes wrong?
Yeah, I also saw a few stats, and it's alarming. It's quite alarming,
Mhm. Especially given the
because
amount of money people spend.
and the money and the talents and people behind the scenes, So for
Yeah.
me, that it's in a very simple, blunt way, is just because it fails in the due diligence. And there's plenty of examples out there, even with top level companies failing in M&As because the due diligence was not done correctly, or people were misled, or they didn't actually have the best advisors, saying, well, imagine myself now in front of this audience saying, well, let's go, guys, this is the perfect time for you to do M&A. Just off you guys go and crack on.
Yeah.
It's not, it wouldn't be the best advice for me to give to the audience. Unfortunately, this is what many companies, small and medium and large companies, unfortunately, there are a few of them, not with the best advisors. They're telling them, well, this the evaluation of this company is way too much. It's just, I'm sorry, it's not the it shouldn't be evaluated at that level of that amount. Let's just wait, or let's just push back a bit. So this is the number one, and I would say the reason why M&As fail. Also because the due diligence also includes, it's a big umbrella, because the due diligence also includes the risk analysis and the market assessment, and as you said, also the customers, how customers perceive an acquisition,
Yeah.
and the entire partner network, also how they're going to perceive. All of these elements are not considered in many of these M&A, because they are still seen as a financial exercise, not an
Yeah.
overall stakeholder meeting that would contribute with their inputs. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, the only reason is just due diligence.
Interesting. So basically, not doing your homework. And I think
Not
that's
doing the
where,
homework.
looping it back to the topic of the show, like that's where partnerships can come in, right? Because you're not
There you
looking
go.
just at the financials. You're not just looking at a spreadsheet. You're actually looking at like what this looks like in practice. Like, are our
Yes.
customers working well with the partner, or is the partner sending us leads? Like, is there synergy in a way that we haven't, like that we can actually leverage, versus like just draw up in a boardroom and say like, actually, like, we can capture like 5% of their audience or 5% of their time,
Yes.
which might just be a completely hypothetical.
Yeah. And I've seen a few of them, even the companies that I used to work for, and I'm even raising my hand. So sorry, I have a few things to say before going in
Yeah.
that direction. If the company, some people in some of the companies, my previous jobs, they listen. Some others they didn't.
Yeah.
Um, but what I see is definitely some, most of the times the due diligence is not there because it's just one piece of the due diligence that is part of the game, which is the CFO. Usually it's just
Yeah.
a financial thing, as opposed to include the strategy, the portfolio, the partnerships, sales.
Yeah.
Most of these companies, they don't see that, which is the reason why we have 70 or 70-ish% of M&As end
Yeah.
up in failure.
Yeah. I wonder what the role of time is in all of this. Because like I think a really big factor of due diligence is also just the urgency around the deal. Because oftentimes it's not just you trying to acquire somebody. It's oftentimes that there are like 2 or 3 interested buyers who are competing,
Yes.
who are trying to close this deal, who don't want to lose it, right? You don't want to be the one left with it. And so I wonder if that herd mentality, or if that like, tunnel vision you get in those moments where you're like, oh my God, our competitor is buying them instead, is leading to these outcomes where most of the acquisitions fail, because you don't have the time to like set up a partnership. And also, if you set up a partnership and you promote it, you might actually like attract the other buyers, because they're like, oh, they're working really well with this company, and this company's in our space. Maybe we should buy them. So how do you think about that? Like the risk of like advocating for a partnership, which then ultimately just drives up the price of the acquisition target.
Spot on. That also is a key element that you mentioned, because again, we've never seen as many as investment companies and VCs and whatever Cs we have out there that are ready to invest, have cash ready to invest in some company, one or two or more companies, and they expect immediate results. These things, we all know that takes time. M&A
Yeah.
and also partnerships. Partnership takes time to develop. My mantra is always like people to people first, and business comes on the top. You can't have a successful partnership or successful M&A if you don't have trust, if you don't trust people. And trust doesn't happen overnight. You need to earn it. You need to spend time with people to understand exactly if that makes sense or not. What works against this is exactly what you mentioned, Franz, which is the urgency. Everything is urgent nowadays. It's everything. It's urgent. So there's nothing that we work that is not urgent. And I have exactly the same. And I'm just sharing here my thoughts and my experience. But I feel this every day. What's the urgency for this? What's the urgency for that? Oh, I've noticed on a company that is doing this, and they have 200 partners. Let's just buy them. So, hold on, we need to go back. Hold on, and do our due diligence. So it's still, but it works against us, and it shouldn't. Time should work in our behalf and in our benefit as well.
Yeah, I do think that given the amount of money involved, it probably does make sense to like try to spend more time on due diligence and try not to like, rush into anything, just because yes, like the price might be driven up by like promoting a partner and then like somebody else gets interested as well and so forth. But on the other hand, like if you like have somebody you want to acquire for 50 million and then they end up costing 100, but it's a great deal, it's probably still better than if it's like a 50 million deal, but it's actually at a really bad price. Like because like you've realized that the due diligence failed and like they're actually not a good deal, and then once you buy them, you just lose your 50 million investment and that's it.
The due diligence, it's bringing a lot of people to the same meeting room, and this is where companies are failing, because again, they all think about this is just a financial initiative, so we're going to work with a finance guy, with all due respect to the finance guys. But my thing here is all about the due diligence. It's a comprehensive planning. As you said, there's a lot of planning needs to be done. Takes a lot of time, depends on the complexity of the strategy and the vision. But this is why they fail.
Yeah, that's great. So the takeaway is to bring more people into these discussions, make sure that more people understand.
Yes.
Have a way to chime in.
People from the field to the strategy, understanding their position. Do you think that these guys could be a good move or not?
Absolutely. And then better to acquire a great company at a bad price than to acquire a bad company at a good price. Another great takeaway. We are at time, and I know you're busy, so I want to let you go. But before we leave, where can people learn more about M&A? Like, how did you learn about this? Are there any resources you would recommend for people to check out?
Well, listen, they are, and I'm more than happy then to share with reach out to me or to Franz, and please, I'm more than happy to share a few articles. There's not a lot of specific things. Everything that we learn on an MBA, for instance, it's very high level, very corporate. I think there are a few things that I've been reading, but also learning much more from a sales perspective than from a financial perspective. Financial, obviously, it needs, goes without saying that people need to understand the ins and outs of the financial move. But the sales point of view, the sales process, understanding that, and then understanding the portfolio, and then understanding the competitive landscape and the market expansion and emerging markets. So it's not just one thing that you have and you drink from that. It's multiple elements that you need to learn to get yourself into the proper M&A, and your own experience also counts. But I'm more than happy to share a few resources in the back of this webinar for sure.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And we got some feedback from the audience, which said, "Fantastic, Mario," and I can only agree. This was a phenomenal session.
happy to share a few more details. Just connect with me and Franz, and happy to share.
Yeah, I assume LinkedIn is the best platform to reach you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And with that, that's a wrap for today's show. Thank you, everybody who tuned in live, and to those who are listening to this recording. We're going to be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Deep Partnership. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hark now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Schrepf's command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through veritable seas to boxes flow. Dar, oh, die. Hoist the sail.